Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to SJ MMA. Yeah, that's right, I'm back, finally. And I am back for good this time. I know I've said that before, but today I'm doing something a bit different. It's the start of a new series. I'm creating the perfect UFC fighter. We're starting with the heavyweights. And as you can bloody well see, there are 9 different categories I'm going to talk about. I can only use each fighter once, and we're doing striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, cardio, chin, power, speed, fight IQ, and personality. Only current fighters. Let's get into it. Starting off with the striking, I'm going to go for the Frenchman. It's Cyril Gane. He obviously came from Muay Thai and he was undefeated in that discipline. He's very good out of both stances, like I've said here as well. That's rare at heavyweight if you think about it. And he's beaten a lot of elite level heavyweights on the feet. Some of them over 5 rounds and some of them he's got finishes. I've mentioned a few here. I think the Volkov fight was a bit boring but a good showcase of his striking. JDS was always quality, and Ngannou, on the feet he was better than Ngannou in that fight. But of course he's also beaten the likes of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, all with his striking, and I believe in terms of natural striking, in terms of the well-roundedness of his striking game, I think he's the best in the division, to be honest. But I will just mention this now, of course I need to come up with the best 9-fighter combination, so you may argue there are better strikers than Cyril Gane, you may have a point, however I need to try and make sure it kind of balances itself out over all the 9 categories, and I think you can only really put Gane in this one, so that's another reason why he's here. On to the wrestling, and for me it's another relatively easy one. I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes. The man has the most UFC heavyweight takedowns in the history of the company with, I think he's got 62, which at heavyweight is very damn impressive. As much as the size and the density of Blaydes really helps him both secure his takedowns and hold his opponents down, he is also relatively technical on the ground, at least in comparison to some of the other heavyweights that we've seen as major grapplers over the years. He's an NCJAA, of course he went to junior college, which is probably a reason why he has that level of technique there as well. Now I know that Curtis has a tendency to get knocked out by huge punchers. Lewis, Ngannou and Sergey Pavlovich come to mind, but over the years his striking has massively improved, and against those who don't have as much power, I think he can live on the feet, I really do. I mean, look at the Dorcas fight. I know Dorcas isn't a great example, but if you look at his first fights, like the one that comes to mind is Justin Willis. His striking was sloppy way back in the day, but now he can be competitive there. That only helps his grappling. With the jiu-jitsu, again, may I remind you that I can only use a fighter once, which for me leaves Jailton Almeida as probably the only candidate for me to put in here. Now, why is he so good at BJJ in the heavyweight weight class? Well, number one, he used to fight in lower weight classes, okay? That lighter frame makes him so much more quicker on his entries against these big, I don't want to say all fat, but most of them are. They don't know what to do with that kind of thing. They're not used to it. And it is also a well-known fact, the level of the skill involved in the grappling in the lighter weight classes is a lot better than at heavyweight. It's almost as if the further you go down, the more kind of technical it becomes. Like if you look at a flyweight fight, they're not always exciting, but they're damn quick and technical. Heavyweights are not used to that kind of thing. Again, like with the speed and the technique I just said, it can really catch him off guard. Like, I know he didn't submit Derek Lewis, but I mean, I know that Del Boy's not exactly a BJJ specialist, but he did not know what to do at all. And when you have a heavyweight that's not completely reliant on size, that can be real dangerous. And speaking of dangerous, this geezer has got some of the best chokes I think I've ever seen in the higher weight classes. Not even just heavyweight, but even a couple down as well. Those rear nakeds and arm triangles, all of his submissions have been by a choke. He's so good at them. On to cardio. I'm choosing, in my opinion, the best heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. Now, he is a bona fide 5-round fighter, just as I've put on here. The amount of title fights that he's not only fought, but also trained for, and the fact that when you train for a 5-rounder, that just elevates the amount of cardio you do. He has to be up there in terms of cardio, surely. Especially considering the fact we've seen it weaponised against Ngannou and Daniel Cormier in particular. In the Ngannou fight, the first one I'm on about, not the second one, the first one, Ngannou blew his load after 5 minutes, and Stipe just grinded him out, took him down, beat him up, and kept him there. Dominated with his cardio. In DC, he was losing that fight, but the body shots in the championship rounds, he took over. That's what good cardio gives you. And another thing about Stipe is even at the start of his UFC career, he was never that huge and muscle bound, but especially now as time has gone on in his more recent, well I say recent fights, his most recent fights, he's leaned down even more. I think at the DC fight he was about 231, which is lean for a heavyweight. That's basically Jailton Almeida levels. And if you've got a leaner frame, you're not carrying as much mass, that's only going to help you work harder and not burn as much off. So, I think he's built for cardio for a number of reasons. That's why I put him here. Trying to come up with a chin entry at heavyweight was very difficult because all of them have basically been finished. It's so tricky to find a heavyweight that has none of that kind of blemish on his record. And the guy I've picked does have that blemish, it's Volkov, but I'm going to explain why I've still gone with him. He's a veteran of the game, he's had 47 MMA fights, he's only lost by KO TKO twice. The first one was in Bellator and that was a TKO. The second one in the UFC was of course that last second knockout from Derek Lewis. Apart from that, he's never been finished from strikes in any of his fights. I think that needs to be considered a lot. And another thing about Volkov, I know it's an entry about chin, but one of the things that Volkov is very good at is using his overall range and gifts. The physical things that you just can't teach. His height, his leg span, that kind of thing. That means he doesn't get hit very often. I know that's not really explaining the quality of his chin. However, if you can stop yourself getting hit, you don't need to have your chin tested as much. So, if I'm thinking about creating a fighter, having that ability would help your chin because it wouldn't get hit as much. If that makes any sense. And just really quickly on old Drago Volkov, I think he is probably the most underrated UFC heavyweight of all time. I think there are other options up there as well. I think that Gonzaga and Pedro Hizo are two that are also overlooked nowadays. But I think in the present day, Volkov should get a lot more credit. I know he's taken losses, but he's a very good fighter. I really like watching him fight. On to punch power, and it has to be big Sergey Pavlovich. 6 first-round knockouts in a row. That was a UFC record, and I'm not surprised. This man looks scary and could probably kill you with a punch. I'm not going to lie. And it ain't just about the fact he had 6 early first rounds knockouts in a row. It was the competition. I mean, he battered Lewis. He completely destroyed Tuivasa, and Blades didn't stand a chance. He was fucking stuttering on the way down. He couldn't take it. Do you know what I mean? Just different kind of power. And I'm going to say it with complete clarity. I think he hits harder than Francis Ngannou. I really do. If you look at Ngannou, I don't want to shit on Ngannou. If you look at his UFC record and his overall kind of UFC tenure, I suppose, a lot more of them were TKOs. Sergey Pavlovich knocks people stiff. Ngannou obviously completely annihilated over him. He's had some good highlights in there, but I think Sergey hits harder. But either way, he had to be the power section. There's no other alternative. There is only one fighter in the heavyweight division that I think you could honestly put in all 9 categories, and it's Tom Aspinall. But I think speed is where he really shines, so I've decided I'm going to put him in here. I think he's got the fastest hands we've ever seen at heavyweight. I really do. Now, a lot of you could say that's recency bias. I know that in his prime, Stipe had quick hands, and there have been others as well that have escaped the top of my head for now, but I don't think we've seen a heavyweight with not just speed as well, it's the ability to find the target as quick as possible. It's no good having fast hands if you can't hit your target. But he can do both. He's got quick hands and he finds his range very quickly. But it's not just about the striking. I mean, if you watch that ending sequence against Volkov in London in that main event, the way he was able to duck under the shot, go straight through the square hips and lock up that straight arm lock, I don't think we've seen heavyweights that can do that very often. I mean, we've seen great heavyweights. We've seen Cain Velasquez, Randy Couture. In terms of speed, this guy's on a different level. And you think, okay, if you have a heavyweight that's that fast, there has to be a trade-off. Like, I don't know, he may be 6 foot tall and only 225. He's 6'5" and he's 260. I mean, it's just not really fair, is it? It's like you go on UFC 5 and you max out all your stats on career mode. Then you get Tom Aspinall. It's just not fair. He has to go in speed. On to fight IQ, it has to be John Jones. In my opinion, one of the best brains that fighting has ever seen. He can out-wrestle the strikers and outstrike the wrestlers. That's just the way you have to do it if you got a brain like John Jones. I mean, come on now. The way he low-kicked the shit out of Daniel Cormier and then threw one upstairs and got the TKO with the head kick. And the way he was able to dominate Alexander Gustafsson in their rematch. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. But he's also able to outstrike strikers as well. I mean, the Shogun performance, in my opinion, still his best performance ever. He's never ever put himself in any danger that he didn't need to be. And he's so good at kind of using his range and using the lead hand almost as a poster. And that's so difficult to get past. Even if you get around it, he can either stuff the takedown, he can go in himself, he can knock you with a low kick and then swivel and pivot. It's just, there's so many options for him. And he's so good at keeping himself safe. And yeah, just to follow on from that, he's very good at using those gifts, like the reach and the leg span. It's just, his overall frame was built so well for what his fighting style would turn out to be, that it's almost like it was meant to be. It's seamless how he's been able to take those natural and physical gifts and mould it into a fighting style that is completely impenetrable to pretty much anybody he's ever fought. Like I said, it kind of seems like fate, but no, in terms of fight IQ and the way he thinks about the game, John Jones is unmatched, at least at heavyweight. I'd still go with GSP over him, but hey, that's just an opinion. And finally, personality, one of my favourite fighters. This is a bit of a biased pick. But he's still quite a good personality, so I think you'll be okay with this. It's Taito Ibasa. I mean, he's my profile picture on YouTube, for fuck's sake. I mean, obviously I love him. One of the few heavyweights that can actually, I don't know, put together a decent interview, either in a normal interview situation, in a fight week, or in a press conference. I mean, I remember UFC 293. Do you remember when Adesanya and Manel Kape had that little argument? And Tuivasa was just sat in between them with a bucket on for the vibes. I mean, you can't not pick him for personality. The guy's a legend. Little recap, ladies and gentlemen. In striking, it's Cyril Gane. Wrestling is Curtis Blades. The BJJ is Jelton Almeida. The cardio is Stipe. The chin is Alexander Volkov. The power is Pavlovich. The speed, Tom Aspinall. Fight IQ, John Jones. And personality, Taito Ibasa. That just about wraps it up from me. I hope you liked the video. Like I said, I am going to be back more regularly now, and you can hold me to that. I am here, and I'm here to stay, alright? I'm not here to take part, I'm here to take over. As the legend once said. Anyway, yeah. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Yeah. I'm just rambling now, so I'm going to cut it. Right. See ya.